Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's Ag Forecast brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. Well, I want to thank Mark. His Twitter handle here is MarkF1962. I want to thank him for sending me this great picture here on the Equinox of the sun rising right there in the middle of the street. So here we are in the Midwest, where I live too. Almost all of our roads crisscross, north, south, east, west. And Mark, thanks for the picture, because I got to quiz my kids on the Equinox. I asked my 8-year-old son, I said, what direction are we looking at this picture? It's taken in the morning. And he knew it was east. That's right. And the sun came right up here on the horizon directly to the east. Now, what's great about this is that for the Northern Hemisphere, this now means that we have more daylight hours than darkness hours as we move now fully into spring. And as we start to think about that, what do those higher sun angles mean in terms of recovery of surface temperatures and also our soil temperatures? But also when you start to build the heat back into the atmosphere, it also pulls in more moisture and starts to set us up for a bit more severe weather. Now, over the weekend, things are relatively quiet. This is looking at the last 72 hours of total accumulated precipitation. A couple things we were watching. There was a coastal low that was sitting right here off the Carolinas. And we did have some flow coming in from the north and west like this into the west coast of the United States. And it did put down some snow into the mountains there in the western part of the United States. In fact, let's go take a quick look at that snowfall from over the weekend. We can see that the Cascade Mountains here certainly picking up some late season snow, and also the Sierra Nevadas, which need more snow to finish out this month of March to really bring up those numbers. And we were still putting it here in the Intermountain West as well. We're going to talk about what the snow is doing right over here in the Front Range in just a few moments, but I would like to show you what some of those basin average snow water content numbers look like for the West. So these numbers are critical for the success of the upcoming growing season. Remember, it's compared to normal, so we want these numbers above 100. That would be fantastic this time of year. So we do start to see a few areas that we get concerned about. So, for example, the Sierra Nevada reporting stations here, in the mid-60s to low 70 percentile. We certainly need quite a bit more moisture in this area as we finish out March and start April. And in and around the Four Corner states, while we've been building snowpack here in this part of the Rockies, it'd be good to just get more snow into this area before we get fully into this next growing season. Now, since we're talking about snow, it's a bit of a smaller image here, but this is snow water equivalent. And with those higher sun angles, we're going to be watching on what happens in the snow here in parts of the high plains and into the Rockies. But notice that much of the rest of the country here, getting into the southern Canadian prairie, snow-free. And we've been eroding some of that snowpack here in parts of the Northeast as well, including getting into Ontario right around Lake Superior. All right. Yesterday, just watching some satellite imagery. Take a look at this. This is kind of sun up here. I'll just pause it here and kind of walk you through a couple of things. A lot of us still under the influence of higher atmospheric pressure here over the east, but there's a couple of important points to be pulling out of this animation here. One, can you see how strong the winds are coming across the Baja right in through here? This is actually a part of the subtropical jet stream that's about to cut through Arizona into New Mexico and Texas. That's going to initiate a pretty vigorous little low that's going to come into this area. You can also see the coastal low that was just sitting and spinning just off of the southeast here, which gave us that soggy and cloudy weekend. But you do notice, you can see under the clouds, the snow is not there. But one area we're going to be talking quite a bit about it is right in through this region. So let's get there, okay? This is what's going on with our upper level wind speed today, so jet stream level winds. And let's just take a note of a couple of things. I want to be watching two features. One, we've got this trough right through here, and this is going to be the one early this week that's going to set us up for the potential for severe weather from the southern plains and possibly into the Midwest. But the kicker wave is this one right back here, all right? And then you do notice that there is another deep trough that's still sitting here south of the Aleutian Islands. But initially this week, it's going to be these two waves right in through here. They're going to work together to produce two separate storm systems in the Midwestern part of the United States, which will initially emerge off of the Rocky Mountains. So with that, let's just get a quick recap of what to expect this week. The European model early run this morning, what you can see is the effect of kind of the split flow coming in like this, and then the stronger subtropical branch in through here. And what we end up getting is two separate systems that are going to be putting down quite a bit of precipitation. What's very important about this is look at how far back into the plains and through this area, into the western Corn Belt, we are bringing in the heavier rainfall amounts. We saw all weekend long that the GFS slowly adjusted to what the European is suggesting here for above average precipitation in this area. This split flow is problematic for the West Coast, where we do expect to be drier this week, and also in this part of the northern plains getting into the southern Canadian prairie, an area that we're very concerned about for drought. Elsewhere, just very quickly, the Carolinas, we're going to have to wait a little while longer to bring in more moisture, as you can see here. But down south, I am expecting quite a bit of thunderstorm activity in this area. Some of that could be severe throughout this week. So with that as the setup, let's get on right into this and see how that precipitation accumulates. European model, this is a 0Z run today. We're just going to walk our way through the day on Monday. So this gets us out Monday into early Tuesday, through actually midday Tuesday. And you can see the model where it's putting down the heaviest precip: Kansas, eastern Nebraska, encroaching here on the western Corn Belt in parts of the Mid-South. And I'll tell you something, this part of the Mid-South doesn't want to see another drop of rain for a while, given how wet things had been. As we keep playing this through, this is Tuesday getting into Wednesday, now into Thursday. Like we said, we're going to watch the southern plains into the lower Mississippi River Valley for the threat for some severe weather. But now you've actually seen two separate systems come through this area, adding a lot of rainfall. So even if I just get you out here to the end of this week, why don't we just stop it here Saturday midday? You get a kind of a snapshot on where the heaviest precipitation's going to be throughout this next week. And that's going to be the two systems we got to spend a little bit of time this morning analyzing. Our all hazards weather map here from weather.gov. We do have the red flag warnings and the high wind warnings out for parts of New Mexico and Texas. You can still see strung up here right along the Front Range where we do have our winter weather advisories. Same thing here for the Pacific Northwest. As the flow is coming in from the northwest like this, we're going to watch that region too for more snowfall. Okay. Convective outlooks from the Storm Prediction Center. Today it's really centered on the Red River Valley, and this is where we're going to watch for, the return of that Gulf moisture. We do have our dry line set up, but you saw the upper level winds were screaming over the top of this. So it's a strongly sheared environment that we're going to be dealing with today, and it's just the beginning of this week's severe weather threats. As we then go into tomorrow, so this is the 22nd, here's the 23rd, there will be, we'll have to watch carefully to see how far to the north we're able to open up the kind of the axis of the most unstable air. It's going to be cloud cover dependent to see if we can bring in sunshine to heat up the lower levels of the atmosphere, keep the upper levels cool to allow this to really kind of pop off with some severe thunderstorms here as this low emerges. But let's go take a look at it by looking at our HighRes NAM model. So let's get through early this morning. So we can see the reason here for the winter weather advisories, both in Colorado and also in the Pacific Northwest. But the lead low, okay, so remember, this is the little wave kicking in the backside. Here's the lead upper level low here. This is by 10 a.m. this morning. As we work out into the afternoon hours, we are expecting a pretty broad shield of precipitation leading here. Snow in western Kansas, snow back in Colorado and Mexico. But you notice, we expect the skies to clear right in through here. And as a consequence, we'll destabilize and potentially bring out a line of storms there late this afternoon. And then as you can see through the evening hours, it pushes that through the Red River Valley. Meanwhile, more precip spreads north, up toward Omaha, eventually toward Sioux Falls, and then this gets into Iowa. And I'll tell you something, folks riding through here are looking forward to getting some of this moisture back in the soil. Like I said, the problem is that these waves cutting down to the south are not able to rebound quickly enough to return that moisture clear to the Dakotas, another area we need it. Well, here we are early Tuesday morning. And as this low starts to pull out, here into Thursday afternoon, you can still see kind of the two separate fronts, the back front here, all right, then the leading upper level front that'll be out in this area. We will watch this whole corridor for the potential for strong thunderstorms, but still it's going to be a nowcast situation to figure that out. And you see on the backside that shield of precip moving now into Minnesota, Wisconsin, and South Dakota, and we saw how much it was putting down there. But North Dakota, this just does not get far enough north to get you throughout the day here on Tuesday. By Wednesday, that low wraps out in parts of Wisconsin, spreading scattered showers here over to parts of the Mid-Atlantic, the Appalachian Mountains, and our next wave is cutting down into this area. So let's talk winds first, because you saw how tightly spaced those isobars are. As we play this through, this is now getting through Monday, and then working our way into Tuesday. we can see here that the HighRes NAM model is picking up on the potential with this next system for bringing in wind gusts. Now, these are not storm-based, but wind gusts here that could be in that 30 to 50 mile an hour range. And it's been quite windy across such a broad sector here of the plains and Midwest so far this year, and also to the east. And so we're going to keep watching out for these stronger winds. Now, to see the rest of this play out, let's hop over to the European model. Now, we've watched system number 1, so there it goes, okay? And you can see as I kind of rock back and forth here on the day on Monday, the kicker wave coming now down through the Intermountain West. So as we go through, this is now Tuesday evening, getting into Wednesday morning. That second wave has now moved through the Four Corner States. We're putting down some snow, helping those numbers out here in New Mexico. And now as the first wave goes toward Wisconsin, you can already see the recovery of the moisture down here to the south. And what this is going to do is that by Wednesday evening, now getting into Thursday morning, our next low begins to kind of pull out right into this area. And we're going to watch this region later on this week for some strong to severe storms. That's the lower Mississippi River Valley. This is now 7 p.m. Thursday, getting into early Friday morning. That next low, currently as forecast by the European model, deepens quickly as the upper level wave sharpens. There's actually 2 separate troughs. There's one to the north and one to the south. These 2 jet streaks are working together to deepen this. And the potential exists right now for some quite heavy rainfall here in parts of Illinois, Indiana, northern Indiana. That's another place that really needs it. Same with southern Michigan. Now to the south, we will watch the frontal boundary for some more severe storms late this week, but we're pretty far out there in the forecast to know the exact position of this low as it moves through the day on Friday. But as we now get past this, there's a bit of a change in the pattern that we do need to discuss here, and let's take a look at how this is all going to shake down. First, just a reminder how much precip we are expecting through the next week. More flooding potentially down here in the lower Mississippi River Valley, as you can see here. But this area right in through here picking up on the rainfall in the parts of the western Corn Belt and the Central Plains is going to be fantastic. This is an area that desperately needs it. But that split flow in the west, we do not get strong onshore flow. And California here stays over on the drier side as we move forward. Okay, snowfall. What's been interesting to watch over the weekend is this snow band that's right in through here. Now, you saw it a few moments ago, but earlier it was much farther back to the west, so it has shifted as this low has kind of given us more ideas about where it's going to be going. But that's it in terms of snowfall over this next week. It's primarily going to be confined here to parts of the high plains. You can see it kind of edges its way out here a little bit with some lighter snow, but from the high plains here into the Colorado Rockies into New Mexico is where we're expecting most of our snow. Split flow again, hitting the Cascades, not hitting the Sierra Nevada mountains. From there, let's go take a look at week 2. Now, this is interesting. Let's do a multi-model analysis here. You see, when you look at the GFS, the GFS is pretty clear. We're going to keep things wetter than average in Texas, and we have drought in this area. So I think this is fantastic to get this moisture return. But really across much of the rest of the U.S., with the exception of the Northeast, week 2 appears to have a bit of a calming down to it. And the European models bought into this as well. You can see what it's doing in Texas and parts of the Northeast, but not nearly as aggressive with the moisture. Now, we talked on Thursday about how the week 2 pattern isn't fully picking up on, these little shortwaves that come through, but we still can't ignore the broad scale view of this, suggesting a bit of a slowdown overall. So we start to look for some reasons why. I think it has a lot to do with atmospheric momentum. Now, I love showing these plots, but they can be a bit confusing because they're total zonal, vertical and zonal, atmospheric momentum. So when I see these colors indicating high momentum, that's generally driven by a strong Pacific jet stream. We have had weak subtropical flow. That's why California, for example, really missed out on a lot of March precip. Here was our last big push of La Nina as well, okay? But what I want to draw your attention to, look at this last arrow. As of late, the Pacific jet stream has started to back off a bit. We're getting the tail end of that activity right now. So as we then look out there again and see that things just tend to calm down a bit, we start to ask ourselves, well, we see what that means in terms of precip. What does it mean in terms of the jet stream pattern and temperatures as well? So by day 10, instead of having this screaming jet coming in like this, it's still here, but it's now weaker. We still have the split flow at that point as well, which is why we continue to see into week 2 the west is showing up drier. But as we get out there fully past week 2, what you've got here is the strongest winds are now over here from parts of the Caribbean getting into the Atlantic. And just in general, we just don't see strong flow across North America. And so if we don't have that strong jet stream level flow, there's no reason for the models to be aggressive on bringing in precipitation. You just don't have the strong dynamics to create a lot of fronts, to really advect or move the moisture around. And so this will just be a situation to monitor over the next several days to see how this kind of manifests itself into the first week of April. Now, given that, let's talk temperatures, because the last 2 weeks, as you see here, have been quite warm for much of North America. We've carried a cool bias across the west and only just, really temporary shots at some cooler air here in the midsection of the United States. Look at what it's done to how many GDUs we've accumulated compared to normal since the 25th of February. I started at the 25th because that would be after that Arctic outbreak. And we've recovered very quickly down here across the south with our GDUs. So some of that replanted crop down in the south got a lot of heat back in. And we wish we could keep this around in through April and into May, this kind of quick accumulation of heat here in the Midwest and in the plains as we get our crops going there. The West, you can see the reflection of the cooler weather here. We're off 30, 40 GDUs in part of the Central Valley. We have had some cooler mornings here as well. But going forward with this temperature forecast, a lot of it can be understood by looking at the upper level trough ridge pattern. So let me just back you up here and show you how things are shaking down. Here's our two waves early this week, the lead wave and the kicker, right? And that one comes around the base, hits right here into Arizona by Tuesday, and then it ejects there on Wednesday. That's our second system going through the U.S. But as we go into the end of this week, we generally see a couple of things. The United States is flanked by a ridge in the Gulf of Alaska and one here in the Canadian Maritimes. We've got quite a bit of cold air that's tucked over Greenland. Now you watch this carefully, ready? As we go through the end of March, what we see here is, watch up here. This is the 27th going through the 29th right here. Now, as this transitions back across the Arctic, we throw through a couple of shortwaves. See them right here? They go through the Canadian Prairie into the northeast. But then you're going to see, there it is, the transition of where the troughs were over Greenland now moving back here over the Arctic. So you just imagine you push that cold air there. It's just relaxing the pattern, sending more warmth as we start the month of April into this large ridge sitting right here. Both the GFS and the Europeans see it. So what does that do to temperatures? Well, here's our max temperatures today on Monday. We know that we do have the colder air that is in place here in parts of the plains and in the Intermountain West. Remember, the troughs are cutting in here. Warmth spreading into the northeast. That's going to work on that snow cover pretty hard here. Okay, this is Tuesday. Getting into Wednesday's high temperatures compared to normal. Now we're into Thursday, Friday. So that much of this week, we do see some cooler weather at times sliding into this area and into the southern plains. But as we get out there longer term, there's the 27th, 28th, and 29th. We're going to see some warmth build initially west, cooler weather hanging in and around the Great Lakes. And watch what happens as we get past this with our soil temperatures, okay? So when you watch these animations, keep your eye on this solid line right here. That's the 50-degree line. Okay, that's where things are expected to be the first week of April. Unfortunately, we've got to get through the colder weather on the 28th, 29th, and 30th. So you can see at that time, 7 a.m. 4-inch soil temperatures could be down here with the 50-degree isotherm, cooler in this area. But as you break out of the end of March and get into the beginning of April, the GFS is really letting that warmth return. See it there? And we can notice that when we look out at the day 5 through 10 pattern. This is from the GFS. You notice that it's just not calling for much broad scale, much above average temperatures. And the European is on board with that as well. But we're getting hints of the warmer pattern really returning, such that by the time we get to day 10 through 15, now look at it back here kind of in full swing. And there it is in the European model as well. Now, the big question that I want to finish with is, does this continue into April? So, like we talked about last time, the European models forecast of the MJO did not dive down like this into phase 3. And if it would have been over here in phase 3 in the Indian Ocean, our pattern would have gone cold. Instead, you see that it swings back around here toward phase 6. And if you caught my video on Thursday, we know that this is the more mild side of our phase diagram, whereas this tends to be the colder side here. Now, looking out there longer term, this is what the European model has from the 4th of April through the 11th. Once again, we see, well, drier, more favorable, spring start here. This moisture return in this area, while it does typically signal severe storms, that's a drought area, so we like to see that. And this is what that week in April looks like. So this, again, is the 4th through the 11th, a mild start. There is only some concern as we start May that we could bring in just more seasonable, even at times a cooler shot of air coming through the northern plains of the United States, but it's pretty far out there and just not yet set in stone. So that's what I got for you today. Let's use this as our kind of benchmark rolling through this week. Keep an eye on that severe weather early, but let's keep watching for this early April warmth to spread throughout April here across the lower 48 and the Canadian prairies as we move forward. Appreciate your attention today. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.